want to welcome you to the show as we have the one and only Brad Greenquist joining me on the show here today. Brad, how are you doing? How's your
Thank you,
afternoon
Max.
going?
I'm good. I'm very well. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. This is
Of
very
course.
exciting.
I appreciate it, but I want to get into your early beginnings here because you originally grew up in Virginia.
Yes. I was born in Maryland, and my father was in the Army, so we moved around a lot. Finally, kind of settled in Virginia for a while from 1966 when I was 6 years old. And I grew up in Falls Church, Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C., and eventually made my way down to Richmond to go to school at Virginia Commonwealth University. They had a very good BFA program for theater. And after that, I bounced up to New York, lived in New York for 10 years, and then bounced out here to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And there's my life of travels.
Your love of horror began when you saw the classic Universal monsters with Dracula, Frankenstein. You're a huge fan of The Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, that's when I was a kid. And I just fell in love with those. I loved to be scared. I loved watching these. There was a show on Friday nights there in the DC area. It was called Sir Graves Ghastly Presents. And his name was Lawton Demmings, I believe. And he was out of Detroit. So he did, one of those, introductory things to each nightly show. And they were hilarious. They're great. You can find little clips of him doing some of his shows on YouTube. Sir Graves Ghastly. And that just got me hooked on those old Universal horror films. I just thought they were great. And I watched every week. And it was at 11:30 at night on a Friday night. So it was when it started. And, being a kid, that was really, really late to stay up, especially back in those days in the 70s. But I would stay up and watch every Friday night. And, I still have a great affection for those movies, especially Frankenstein and The Bride of Frankenstein. I think Bride of Frankenstein is a brilliant, brilliant movie. The framing and the iconography in that film is just, it's amazing. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing for kind of a kind of a low budget 1930s horror movie. It's just amazing. But also Frankenstein, great, and Dracula, the Wolfman, Werewolf of London, all of those, The Invisible Man, all of those movies. I love them, and that led to the big Japanese monster movies, Godzilla and Rodan and all of those things. Reptilicus, which was like a Danish version of a Japanese monster movie. So and I still have a lot of affection for it. As a matter of fact, several years ago I took my kids to see Bride of Frankenstein here in Hollywood. They have outdoor screenings at the Hollywood Forever Sematary, and they project movies on the back of Rudolph Valentino's mausoleum. And there's this big grassy area, and I took them there to see Bride of Frankenstein. They'd never seen it, and they flipped out. They were little kids, and they just thought it was great. And it's great to see Bride of Frankenstein in a cemetery. It's a great venue for that.
And it's great to hear that they had an appreciation for it, because I feel as though the youth today, when it comes to horror movies, I mean, the millennials and my generation, even younger, they just don't have that appreciation. They will only appreciate what comes in forward times almost.
Yeah, but that's true of audiences in general, but those of us in the business, it's and a lot of actors are like this, not all, but most, not so many of the young ones, but they'll get there. that you gain a huge appreciation for all of cinema history going back to the 1890s, because there's great stuff you can steal as an actor. You can steal stuff from all over the place,
Yeah.
And it's important to know what those genres were and how they were shot and what the acting style was, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And with the horror genre, there are a lot of fans that I've come across that know this history of horror films very, very well, going all the way back into the to the first Frankenstein film from 1913. There are a number of fans that know this stuff inside out. So that's great.
Yeah. You brought up an interesting universal monster before, Werewolf of London. People tend to forget about that if they're not well versed in the horror history, because Lon Chaney, everyone looks at him as the first werewolf, but Henry Hull actually came before him.
That's right. Yep. And that was the first werewolf movie I saw. And so I had a special affection for it. I always thought the others were not quite as good.
So
but now looking at them again, I prefer the Lon Chaney ones,
The Lon Chaney. Yeah, Lon Chaney. That's a great one. You can't forget about that. But you eventually break into the acting business and you started to mime in Washington, D.C. You got into the mime business.
Yes, man, you have done your research, haven't you?
Thank you.
Yes, that is, see, here's what happened with me. At a certain point when I was a teenager, my obsession with horror movies suddenly shifted to silent comedies. And it was probably when Charlie Chaplin came to the United States to get his honorary Oscar. Lifetime Achievement Award sort of thing. And I remember watching that because my father wanted to watch it. And then they showed his film, The Gold Rush, on television. And I was just, the thing I needed from horror movies was that fear factor, that heart beating fear factor. And that was suddenly shifted over to like out loud laughing. And so then for a while, I was just obsessed with silent comedies, Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd and Fatty Arbuckle and Mabel Normand, Keystone Cops, all of that stuff. And so then that kind of turned towards mime. And so I started training in mime. Those were my first performing classes, were mime, local teachers teaching mime. And so I knew this guy who also did it, and he had done some street mime. So we went down into Georgetown in Washington, D.C., and we would do mime together. And the first time we did that, we were a really big hit. I have no idea why. He was good. I was not very good, but he was good. But we got lots of cheers and applause and laughter from a lot of people, and we passed the hat. And I remember at the end of the night, we took the money, we went back to the car and sat there and split it up, right? Mm-hmm. And I took one of those dollar bills and I set it aside because it was the first money I had ever made performing. And somehow I had this clarity of mind to take that first dollar and put it aside. Years later, I'm here in Los Angeles, and my kids were like little. They were like 2 years old, 3 years old. You're climbing bookcase age, right? And one of them climbed up the bookcase and happened to pull down this book, and it fell on the floor, and it opened up, and $1 came out. And I was like, that was my dollar. It was inside a book about Marcel Marceau, French mime. And I recognize it. That's my dollar. That's the first dollar I ever made performing. And so I had it framed, and it's on my wall now. So I see it every day. That first dollar keeps me going when things are like, when there's no work and you're thinking, oh, I'm all washed up, et cetera, et cetera. There's that first dollar. And that kind of inspires me.
And that's great that you even kept that, because I never hear the stories of actors keeping their first dollar, because that's what really gets you going. That's what you're always going to remember the most.
Yes. I had For a while, I had two things. Well, first of all, that dollar is dated. It was a 1977 dollar. That was the year that I earned it. And for a while, when I was in New York, uh, I had this pair of shoes. When I started working after a year in New York, I got a Broadway show, and then I started doing movies, and suddenly I was like working. And so I had these shoes that I was wearing before that work started, and they had holes in the bottom of the soles. So whenever it rained, my feet would get soaking wet, but I couldn't afford new shoes, right? So when I started working, then I had those old shoes tied together and hanging in my room for a while as kind of an opposite reminder, saying, remember this, don't go back to this. But after a while, they were a little too gross, and so I tossed them. But I still have the dollar.
Oh, that's good though that you still have the dollar.
Yeah.
Before we get into Pet Sematary in your horror career, you actually entered one of your own films into a Super 8 festival that you won against 40 competitors.
Yes. I made this film in 1978, and with some friends of mine. I was just out of high school, and it's a silent chase comedy. It's like a Buster Keaton sort of thing. Half hour, Super 8, black and white. I sprung for very expensive black and white film, which was expensive back then even. And silent with, title cards for the dialogue and all of that. And won Best Picture in this Super 8 film festival. And film festivals back then were nothing like they are now. There weren't many of them. There were the big ones, Cannes and Toronto and things like that. But local ones were, few and far between. They're quite a popular thing now, but back then it wasn't. And so, I entered it and won first place, best film in competition, and a second award for best acting. When I was 19 years old. Oh man, 19 years old. So
producer and actor you won, but not the directing side.
No, I did not get best director. So I guess best picture is for the producer, and then best acting was I don't know if it was for me or for overall acting, because it was very much in the style of an early 20s silent film. So the acting wasn't great, but it captured that style, So So at 19, I was an award-winning filmmaker.
Congratulations. Not everyone can say that.
No, not many people can.
Oh, so you're in New York, you get an aggressive agent who originally set you up to get this audition for Pet Sematary, and eventually it works out. And you didn't even think that you were going to get this because you just went and read your lines and they told you that you were good. And eventually you got the part as Victor Pascal, as we all know it.
Yeah. Here's how that happened. I had done a movie the year before called The Bedroom Window. It was directed by Curtis Hanson, but before he was so well known as a director. And it's a really good movie. That was my first big film. And it got great reviews. I got great reviews all over the place. And that year that it came out, which was 87, I guess. It came out in like April, which is not the best time to release a film, but it was a kind of a low budget film and they didn't know how it was going to do. I think it was April, or maybe it was February. Anyway, I got a lot of heat from that. And so Pet Sematary came along. When that came along, I remember I had like 7 scripts I had to read, like within the next couple of days. And Pet Sematary was one of them. And my agent said, this is real important. But they didn't want to see me at first. They wanted to see one of my agent's other clients. And he was so aggressive. He said, well, no, okay, here's the thing. If you want to see my other client, then you got to see Brad too. And they were like, oh, okay. Right. So because I was so busy, and these other projects were like, okay, it was a De Palma film, and it was I don't remember what else. There were a bunch of really high profile films. And at that time, Stephen King was kind of grudgingly given credit for what he had been doing, for the novels he had been writing, but it wasn't really accepted by any, like either by the literary establishments and not so much by the film world either, although it was coming, but it was like, it's horror. And horror was still kind of a separate thing and looked down upon, very much so, at the time. So, I was like, oh, this horror movie. Okay. Yeah, I'll, and I like just went in and kind of did a reading and just kind of played around. And I was put on tape. And then I got a call back to meet the director, Mary Lambert. And she was like, oh, I loved your audition. And I was like, well, I was just playing around. It was actually a really good lesson for me, because playing around is what we should do, us actors, all the time. And we talked about it and about the role and all of that. And she had seen me in the bedroom window. So she was very excited about working with me. And then my agent, they were going back and forth negotiating, because I'd gotten this offer, and he was like, they offered, minimums, but we can get more. And I was like, oh, just take it. I need the work. I need the work. And he was like, no, just relax, forget about it. I'll take care of it. And finally, he negotiated the deal on a Friday night while he was playing poker. He had a Friday night poker game, and like, what a great time to be negotiating a deal. He'd be playing poker and betting and, all of that. And then he'd step away because he'd get a phone call. Okay. And he would like do a little bit of negotiating and hang up and then go back to his poker game. So he got me a good deal on the thing, and then boom, that was that.
That was it.
Isn't that hilarious?
Actually met Stephen King on the set because he played the minister, but it was very brief. He kind of just went up to you. It was like, oh, you look great. This is how I envisioned Victor Pascal. And that was pretty much it.
Yeah. I felt like I was talking to a very large 12-year-old. He was so excited about the makeup and very happy with it. And he was like, oh, that looks great. That's so great. And see, I couldn't really hang around in that makeup when we would have lunch, for example, and that was at a lunch break. I would always go into my trailer, because the first day that I was in makeup and I sat down to have lunch, we had spaghetti, and I had that whole brain thing on there and all the blood, and everybody on that side of the table got up and left, and they were like, I'm sorry, I can't eat the spaghetti seeing that brain. And I thought, oh, I didn't even think of that. So from then on, I would just go to my trailer and have lunch alone, if I was in makeup. So and that's where he caught me. So that was my one brush with Mr. King. Yeah.
I'd love to hear this interesting story from your trailer. Actually, I have the picture here, and it may bring back some memories. Charlie Sheen visited your trailer, I saw.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That was one night. I was either getting made up or having it taken off. I don't remember, but he was there visiting David Anderson. He was a friend of David Anderson's, and they were going to hang out for a while. And he just came by, and I met him. We did some pictures, and he was reciting a bunch of poems from a book of poetry he had written, and we were just hanging out. It was fun, it was a lot of fun. And, of course, a lot of joking about my brain and all of that, Yeah, that was a fun evening.
The makeup process, it took 4 hours on a good day, because I know I've heard the story that you had to go home and clean everything off, and it was really sticky, the glue.
Yeah. It would depend. How long it took would depend very much on what was being shot. If we were only doing close-ups and all they had to get was this. They could get it in you know, a close-up of my face. They could get it done in 3 hours. But doing the hands and the arms and the legs especially, that took longer. And if the shots were later in the movie, you know, there's more veins. There were like 3 stages of veins. The early shots in the movie, the middle shots, and the later shots. And with each of those 3 sections, they got more and more veiny. So by the end, if the shots, if they had to do my whole body, face and whole body, and the shots were at the end of the movie, so more veins, it would take about 5 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. Yeah. And you should be proud of that, because you're not a part of the CGI era.
I know. Yeah. It would, and they didn't have any of these little, you know, blower things to paint it on. It was all hand painted. Every bit of it was hand painted every time, all those little veins. It's amazing what those guys did. Yeah. And then, yeah, at the end of the day, it took about an hour in the makeup trailer for them to get everything off. And then I'd go back to my little cabin in the woods there and scrub some more, because I couldn't get everything. So then that was another hour of scrubbing, you know, scrubbing here and scrubbing here and here and here, you know, finding little bits of glue all over my body. So, you know, it was a long process, but David Anderson and his assistant, John Blake, and we had a great time. Or I don't know about them, but I had a great time with them. You know, we laughed a lot. It was a great deal of fun. So that made the time go by very quickly.
Ground beyond is sour, but my favorite line in the movie is, "Who said you were dreaming?" Just when you come up and you grab Dale on the shoulder, that delivery right there, it just sets the tone of the movie right there for me.
Yes, that was my first shot. But we had to reshoot it. That at first we shot it, and Dale did not have the shirt on. He was bare chested, and you know, same thing. I threw my arm around him, and Mary Lambert, the director, somehow got me to deliver this very ambiguous sort of reading from it. You know, who said you were dreaming? Very simple, and she was so excited after that. And that was my first shot, and that was exciting for me. I couldn't quite figure out why she was so excited about it. But now, you know, once I saw the movie, I was like, oh, that's great. That's kind of scary, you know. But we had to reshoot it. I don't know why. I think there were some problems. I don't remember what. But so a day or two later, we had to reshoot it. But we got the same thing, you know. But yeah, that's my favorite line of dialogue in the whole movie from myself, and I'm glad to know that there's one other person on this planet who agrees with me. You know, because usually, you know, I go to conventions and the fans like these other lines, like, you know, the ground beyond is sour and stuff like that. You know, they really get into those. But my favorite is "Who said you were dreaming?" Because that does set it up, doesn't it?
It does. It does, because when you picture a horror character, you embody that performance right there. Just how you, not even just with the words, just adds to it completely. But that when you grab his shoulder, that's just a completely other, that just adds to it.
Yes, but a lot of that is done by the camera, the camera work and the music, you know. Because all I did was put my arm around his shoulder, you know. That's all I did. But you add a certain camera angle to that, boom, and then pan over and have that little bit of music goes, you know, it becomes a scary thing. Or not a scary thing, but kind of a discomforting thing.
Who said you were dreaming? That's the best line to me. I completely agree. Classic. And Fred Gwynne, you were able to work with such a legend on the set, because if everyone knows him, that's Herman Munster and the Munsters. So how was he on the set, and what was it like meeting him for the first time?
Fred is one of the sweetest, or was one of the sweetest people on the planet. I got to say, he's He was so sweet. We never got to work in the same scene
That's right.
together, you know, but we would pass each other. We would pass each other. You know, I'd be coming on and he'd be getting off, or the other way around. Very often we had lunch together, and just chatted and chatted and chatted. Very sweet man. And I think his performance in the film is the spine of the whole movie. He was so good, you know, just in that opening scene, where Ellie asks him about that path. You know, they're in the yard and she says, where does that path go? And he looks, and then this camera slowly pushes in on him and he says, oh, that's a story I'll tell you another time. That like sets up the whole thing in just 2 or 3 little lines. He sets up this anticipation of something terrible happened or will happen. And it's brilliant. And he does it so easily. It's not thrown in your face, but it sets up the whole movie. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I just think, looking back, he was a brilliant actor. He was so brilliant. He would hide all of that skill. You would never see it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's the sign of a really, really great actor, that you don't see their acting at all, you know? Mm-hmm. And yet they more than fulfill the needs of the story. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So brilliant man. At the end of the shoot, he gave me, you know, he would illustrate children's books.
That's right. I did hear about that.
Yeah, he would write them and illustrate them. And he gave me one, and on the inside cover, he had drawn a picture of Church the cat, but with the brain, you know, hanging out.
Oh, that's amazing.
So it was kind of like a combination of Church and Victor Pascal.
Do you still have that book?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Amazing.
Yep. I'll never part with that.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. It's such a legend. It's such a shame, because I've heard in watching the documentaries about him is that he just couldn't get over the fact of being typecast because of him playing Herman Munster.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, that was another brilliant performance that he did week after week after week, you know? Yeah. But he was great. A very gentle man too. Very funny, very gentle, and very giving. There's this one story. One night, you know, it was the night that he was shooting the scene where he had to confess to Lewis that he felt like he was guilty of his son's death, and he told me it was dawn. I was just coming on, and he had been there all night. And I said, Fred, how'd it go last night? Oh, a lot of trouble last night. I did the scene where I'm talking with Lewis, and I wanted to have those tears, and I couldn't get those tears. I couldn't get them. And we did the scene over and over, and nope, they weren't there. And so finally I took a little break, stepped away, smoked 3 cigarettes and drank 5 cups of coffee, got back, and there they were, right there.
Oh.
That's so funny. It's so fun. Those are those actor things, you know, that the general audience never thinks of. No. Oh, what, this big star wanted tears and couldn't get them, and he finally got them by smoking a bunch of cigarettes and having a bunch of coffee? What? That's sorry everyone, I just spoiled the magic for you, but that is what it comes down to.
This is real behind the scenes processing that goes on here.
Yeah, you know, you go through years of acting classes and you're working on you know, your motivation and conflict and all that, and what it really comes down to is you know, just rattling your physical system so much that you break down and break those masks, and the tears come.
I'm curious to hear the first time seeing yourself in the mirror with the Victor Pascal makeup on, because when you read the script, you may have a different picture of what it looks like in your mind, but when you see it in the mirror, it's completely different. Then you really want to bring this character to life in your own way.
Yes. Well, seeing it being built piece by piece, what you look at is, okay, can we see the edge of the prosthetic piece, and no, couldn't see any edge there. It was really well done. And okay, there's blood there. You can't touch there or there or there because there's blood and it's still sticky and it's going to be sticky all day. This was a problem that was difficult with the makeup, in that I couldn't really touch anything because that blood, if I touched inadvertently, had a little itch, boom, and then I had blood on my hand, and anything that I touched that on got blood on it. You see what I mean? So I kind of had to go through my day like this. In a way, I couldn't really touch anything. I couldn't drink. I had to drink everything out of a straw. So that was difficult. But seeing it for the first time, I don't really remember. I do know that we all wanted, in the book, it's described that his collarbone is jutting out, and we all wanted to do that, but it just wasn't feasible. It couldn't be done in the time that the makeup needed to be done. You know what I mean? But I would say this, these guys, David Anderson brought a bunch of actual morgue photos of people who had head injuries from traffic accidents. And they were so horrible. It was, we did not go that far.
Yeah.
We kind of went in the middle. We didn't go to the really bad ones because that was just, it was too much, too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there were plenty of pictures that were very much exactly what Stephen King describes in his book, and what they did on me,
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then, then you've got all this makeup to either act through or not, and that's a little tricky in itself. What do you do with all of that? Because you're completely covered up, But what I tried to do is get the thing in my eyes, the benevolence. Because to me, he was a guardian angel. He was just a guardian angel. He wasn't a ghost. He was a guardian angel. And so my one place was to get this little twinkle, this goodness coming out of my eyes. Because my eyes, well, one eye did not have makeup on. One had a clouded contact. So out of that one eye, just this little twinkle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I tried to do. And I think I was successful here and there, at least in some shots. Yeah.
I believe that you kept an angel or a guardian angel on your script book too.
Yes. Yeah, I did. I had a notebook, and on the cover, there was a picture. I found a picture that I just copied from a book. I don't know where I got that. And it was an angel sitting on the bed of a child sleeping. The child was sleeping and the angel was just sitting there. And that was my constant reminder. You are not a monster. You are not a ghoul. You are not a demon. You are an angel. You are here to help and to give hope and to give benevolence. Right? That's how I played the role. And I think I was fairly successful at that.
100%.
I hope so. You can
100%.
Because when you think about it, I could have gone way off track,
Just on the appearance.
Yes, I could have looked in the mirror and saw that makeup and been like, okay, I'm going to be this scary guy, I'm going to be like, I'm going to, I could have played that, and that would have thrown the whole movie out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah. That's how I played it, as an angel, as a beautiful, benevolent angel there to help.
And it worked perfectly. It was the complete opposite of what Andrew played.
Yeah. In fact, we did these shots later in the studio here in Los Angeles, 6 months after the shooting. And some of the shots that we did in that session were used when I was in the pet cemetery with Dale at the beginning, and I said, don't go on, blah, blah, blah. And he falls to the ground crying, and I rise up into the air. And that shot where you see my feet going up, you know, we did that in the studio much later. But we also did these shots that they were hoping to use. You know, the scene where I'm walking down the trail at night with Dale following me. The shot, we shot all of that on the set, but in the studio, they hooked me up with wires, and I would walk, and then I would go into a trot, and then my feet would go up, and I started flapping my arms, and I flew down the path into the woods, right? And I thought, oh, how cool is that? And it was all, you know, I was stationary and the camera came past me like that, but I was like flapping my arms and all that. It's so great. But it wasn't used. And years later, I ran into Mary and I asked her, why didn't they use that? And she said, the visual effects were just not quite good enough. They were too distracting to be used. So we decided not to use it because it just took you out of the movie. Mm-hmm. Too bad.
Yeah. But Pet Sematary is a complete classic. It's on every year. Fear Fest is actually on tonight. They're having the Stephen King marathon AMC Fear Fest today, and
great.
It's always a must watch to see. And I want to know what your reaction was when you first found out that you were going to be on the poster. Victor Pascal was going to be on the poster of Pet Sematary.
Oh, well, that was a great surprise. That was terrific. I didn't know anything about that. And one day I just got this big tube in the mail and I was like, what in the world is this? And I saw, oh, it's from Paramount. Well, okay, let's see. I opened it up and unrolled this thing and there was my face. Holy cow. I thought, oh, this is great. This is great. And, you know, I was so young. I didn't see it as, you know, these days I would be like, good. That's going to get me the next job. You know, when you're young, you just get excited about it. Like, oh, look at me, I'm on a poster. You know, and now I would be like, okay, good. I got to segue this into the next acting gig, you know, the next show, the next movie, you know, something like that. But I thought it was great. I love the poster. I really, I think it's a terrific, the original poster. I think it's terrific, you know.
I do too.
Yeah.
Was there ever talks, because we know how sequels can be in the horror world, was there ever talks of bringing Victor Pascal into the sequel and you reprising the role at all, even though Victor Pascal didn't end up being in it, but was there ever talks?
Not that I know of. Nobody contacted me about it. So I don't know if there were anywhere, but not that I know of.
Mm-hmm. I know that you eventually saw the remake with Denise Crosby in the movie theaters, and the guy roped off the theater so you two could watch it because she ended up telling the ticket guy or the guy that gives you your seats that you played in the original, and he said that you guys.
Yeah, I'll tell you the whole story. That was great fun because Denise and I live rather, you know, somewhat close to each other here in LA, and so we see each other every so often. For a while, her son and my son were both playing in Little League. And so I would see her every couple of days on the ballpark and we'd sit and chat and, you know, stuff like that. And so when the remake came out, we contacted each other and said, let's go together. And she was like, yeah, okay. And we said, let's go to a show that's not going to have many people so that we don't take attention away from the movie where it should be, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So there were some new theaters near where she lived. And so we met and went to those theaters at like 1 o'clock show on a Wednesday or something like that. Right. And so we went in, we got there early and there was nobody in the lobby or anything. And so we went over to the ticket machine and I was trying to figure it out. I'm really slow with these things. So I was like, how do I do this? And Denise was standing there and someone came over and said, can I help you? And she said, oh, we're buying tickets for Pet Sematary. And he said, and she stood there for a second. Then she said, you know, we were in the original. This is Brad and my name's Denise, and we were in the original Pet Sematary. She was so proud. And he said, and she said, yeah, he played Victor Pascal and I was, you know, I was one of the leads. Yes, okay. Do you need help with the machine? No, I think I got it. Okay, good. So he brought us in. And so we found some seats up in the back of the theater, and it was one of those places where you can order wine and food and stuff. So we got some wine, and they brought it in, and we were just chatting, and then the lights went down, and preview started, and we watched the movie. And the end of the movie, the lights came up, and there was nobody else in the theater. We thought, well, okay, this was the good show to come see. And we sat there chatting. And finally, the manager came in, and he said, "Is everything okay?" And we said, "Oh yeah, we're just talking." And then I commented, "Nobody else came in to see the movie." And he said, "Well, I blocked the theater off for you guys because you deserved your own private screening." And we were flabbergasted. It was such a sweet thing to do. So sweet, so kind, and so much appreciated. It was really great. We were both just knocked out by that.
And it was deserved. What were your thoughts on the remake when you saw it? Because I'll tell you, to be honest, I'm not a remake guy. Once remakes come about, I just don't have time for it because I'm a purist. I respect what the legends like as yourself did for film. I have no time for it. But what were your thoughts on the remake?
Well, it was a good attempt at an update. It had lots of jump scares that we didn't have because the style is different. It moved through the first part of the film much faster than we did. It didn't have that in the 80s, those horror movies, the Stephen King movies had this campy thing to them, and that's partly why Victor Pascal was in there, for this kind of campy, over the top humor, and all of his movies then had that, like for a while, all of those Stephen King films had elements of Creepshow.
They did.
Just exactly little reminders that this is a silly horror movie, guys. Don't take it all so seriously, and to get everybody to lighten up, and then you have your scare, So the new one didn't have that because that's not the fashion now. No. Jump scares are the fashion. I thought what they did with Church was great. I thought it was, the cat was like there whenever. But I think what I was disappointed with, that they cut Pascal down to almost nothing. He was just an emissary, right? And when I went to see it with my family, my kids, who at that point then were grown, they were in their 20s. One of them said, "You know what? Here's what's missing. When in your original show, whenever Victor Pascal appeared, you had hope. You had hope that things would be okay. But it's a horror movie. You know that things are not going to be okay, but still you would have hope. So whenever Pascal appeared, you'd hope." And that wasn't in the new film, right? They cut him down to just be an emissary and deliver this message from the other side, and then dropped the character, which I thought was, I understand their choice in that, but I thought I preferred the original in that respect, And otherwise, it's very hard to, comment on it because I was in the original, Of course, I'm going to like that one.
The original is always better than the remake. That's what I say. But just being a director and an actor and a creative in film, how do you feel about the originality as far as horror goes in Hollywood? And why do you feel as though Hollywood just wants to keep making these reboots and remakes? Where are the Wes Cravens and John Carpenters of today?
Well, they're still there. It's always, remakes are always about fiscal safety. It's a safer bet for the people who make the financial decisions. It's a safer bet because it worked once before. Let's reintroduce this to a new generation. It'll probably work again, right? Rather than taking a script where you're like, what in the world is this? How do we know this is going to be a hit? How do we know we're going to make money? Because most movies don't make money. Most of them don't, right? It's usually a loss for the investors. Then there's some that break even, some that make a bit of profit, and then a tiny few that rake in gazillions, right? So it's a safer, it's a very risky business financially, and there's a bit of safety in that. I think part of the problem with Hollywood now, and there's always been remakes, they've
Yeah.
like
Scarface
I said,
was
the
a
original
remake.
Frankenstein was made in 1913,
Yeah.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, there was a silent version of that as well, and that's been remade many times. So it's nothing really new, but I think one of the problems now is, and this has been going on for a while, is that a lot of the executives, studio executives, have come to movies from other industries. They haven't come up through the entertainment industry like many of the studio heads did back in the day, Louis B. Mayer and Lemley and all of those, the Warners, they all they were movie people. What you're getting is people coming from other industries, the auto industry, this industry, that industry, and they know the equations to make money. Doesn't quite work in Hollywood, but they're not creative people. They're just dollars and red lines and, the bottom line, all of that. That's, I think, part of the problem, that they're not creative people. Maybe they want to be, but they're not.
No.
It takes a lot of guts to be a creative person. It takes a lot of guts to be a financial person in Hollywood too, but it's a different kind of thing. And therefore, I think it's harder for those people to recognize the potential of a script, right? Therefore, it's harder for new writers and new directors to even get started if they're not in the club already, right? Because the ones who give the green light don't necessarily know what has a potential for being really artistically good, which can make it financially good. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, that's my take on it anyway. That's what I think. Who knows?
Can you imagine if they remade a movie such as Jaws? I think us film fans would have to go out and protest.
Yes, that would be tough. Yeah, there's some movies that you can't touch them,
No.
and you never will.
No. The CGI era, it's just unbelievable. But
Yeah.
oh man, it's just insane. But Pet Sematary, one of the greatest. It's a top 5 Stephen King movie, no doubt about it. It's got to be in there in top 5. I know everyone always favors The Shining and Misery, but to me, Pet Sematary, if we're talking, I get The Shining, they have the gory imagery, but to me, Pet Sematary, right next to The Shining, is a true Stephen King film in my mind, adaptation.
Yeah. It's kind of there were, after Pet Sematary, it didn't get the best reviews. I got to say, Pet Sematary, the original reviews were not great.
Mm-hmm.
They were grudgingly good. Okay, it's a horror movie. It has some good things, but because they couldn't give any horror movie really good reviews. And then Stephen King, after Pet Sematary, his reputation continued to grow, both as a writer and as far as the transition to films, and it's a whole different environment now. So the Pet Sematary now, I think, is more popular than when it was first released. I mean, I go to these conventions and the people there all saw it when they were children, and it's a part of their childhood. It's a part of their personal movie history. You know what I mean? So it's become very, very popular now. I mean, it was popular when it was released. It made a bunch of money in its first release. And then it was really forgotten for quite a while, and now it's got this resurgence. But, you never know. I mean, at the time, it was a low budget horror movie, Stephen King, yes, the novel was very popular, yes, but it was a horror movie at a time when horror movies were not respected. There were plenty around, they just weren't respected, you know?
Which is insane because I consider the 80s the golden era of horror movies. It's so
Yeah, but it
insane.
was, you know, it was chipping away to force their way into getting that respect from
Yeah.
critics and from audiences, you know, and the horror genre did that. It managed to gain respect, but it took a long time, you
It
know?
took into the 2000s, if you think about it,
Yeah.
which is insane because the movies aren't as good anymore.
Oh, there's some really good ones these
In my
days. You
mind.
know? Yeah, there were, you know, there were a lot of bad ones in the 80s too, but they've been like, you know, you don't ever see them because they've
No.
been like, you know, they're done.
Yeah. Those are the Z movies, not the B ones, the
Right.
Z.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man, has there ever been a horror movie that scared you? Because I know I've heard you say that nothing really has frightened you as far as like what you see on screen today, but you used to like being scared as a kid seeing these classic Universal monsters.
Yeah.
Has there been any movie that stood out in your mind that ever terrified you in some sort of way or lingered with you?
Well, Psycho always scares me. The original
Alfred Hitchcock.
film. Even now, that scares me. That does scare me, even when I know what's going to happen. Another movie that really scared me was the original French film, The Vanishing. Do you know that film?
I've heard of it. I've never seen it though.
Yeah, there was an American remake that wasn't very good. The original French one, that was scary. That was, and it's just, you know, a couple on a road trip, they stop for gas. The guy goes in to pay, he comes out, his girlfriend's gone. And he can't find her. And then what, you know, what comes is just, it's all psychological horror. It's what you imagine having happened or happening, you know. There's no monsters, there's no blood. That really scared me. That really, really scared me. And otherwise, no, I kind of look at them, you know, with a sense of distance. I don't really get sucked into the horror, you know, the scares and the blood and all that. I'm very entertained by it all, very much so, but I don't really get pulled into the story so much, you know.
I get what you mean. I understand it, but they say that the best horror is what you don't see.
Yeah, I know. You know, this is what Stephen King is so good at in his books. He like sets up these situations and these characters and leads them up to a point, and then the chapter ends and your head goes crazy with what's happening. The next chapter is the aftermath, right? Mm-hmm. He's so brilliant with that because a lot of all of those scares, that fear happens between the end of chapter 9 and the beginning of chapter 10. Happens in your mind. You know what I mean? He's great at that. Really great.
Mm-hmm. I know at conventions sometimes, I know Bill Moseley will dress up as Chop Top. So Kane Hodder will put on the Jason costume. Have you put on the Victor Pascal makeup at all for any?
No. No, I did it enough for one lifetime. No, and the fans, they come dressed up like that, you know. They some of them have their whole thing, or they bring pictures of their Halloween costumes, and they do like amazing jobs with these with their makeups. And there's many people with my face tattooed on their body somewhere, which is you know, at first I was like, what, you have my face on your calf? That's kind of weird, but now I see it as a real compliment. It's a real compliment, you know, because the tattoo work is so good too, you know. One day somebody brought my head. They brought like a mold of my head and wanted me to sign it. I needed to sign my head for them. That was funny. But no, I don't really want to, and I don't have any of those brain pieces anyway, you know. I don't have any of that stuff. So no, I'd rather just appear as I am.
Yeah.
That attracts enough attention.
Has there ever been a fellow horror actor that came up to you when you first started coming to these conventions and loved your role and said that he loved your role as Victor Pascal in Pet Sematary?
Oh yeah, many, many. And these were people that I was like, oh my God, this is like an icon. But I can't think of any now, but many have. I mean, I meet all these like real horror icons doing these shows. And now I'm just blanking on them all. But that's a great part of it, is meeting all these people that have done such good work, such amazing work, or are just, some of them, some that I meet did one movie, and then they went off and did another life. They had a whole other life. They didn't continue acting. They just did one movie and went off and did many other interesting things. And now they do these conventions because that's one of the movies that, for whatever reason, lasted. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Those are always interesting people to meet and talk with. Yeah, the conventions at first I was like, I don't know about this, but I found out with my first convention within 10 minutes, oh, this is great. These fans are so sweet. They're so kind and so grateful. I mean, what's not to like? Even if I didn't make any money, this is great. This is nice to know that I'm appreciated for this movie I did so long ago,
Mm-hmm. And
It's
it goes to
really,
show you that you care about the fans. That's important too, and vice versa. That these fans
yeah,
are.
and they care about me. It's like amazing, it's really humbling. It's really great. It's
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I want to get into some other work that you've done before we get into
Mhm.
Lost Souls, but because I cover hip hop on my show, gang related with Tupac Shakur.
Yes.
How was it working with Tupac? He's probably the greatest rapper of all time, no doubt about it.
Yeah, well, he was very nice. He was around. I didn't have any direct interactions with him. We were in the courtroom scene together, and he kind of had his entourage that he came with, but when he was, on the set, he was just like everybody else, just trying to make that movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nice guy. It's tragic what happened afterwards, but yeah, he was all right. He was just a friendly, nice guy. I don't know if anyone wants to hear that about him, but he was, he was, and a little bit shy actually when he didn't have all of his folks around.
Yeah. Well, the media portrayed him in such a way, and Kane Hodder did stunts in a movie that he was in. He just described him the same way that you did, just a nice guy. I think the
Mhm.
media took it to another extreme, and then the hip hop persona to him, where people just escalated higher than it really was, and it is tragic, but it's amazing that you had the opportunity to work alongside him in that movie and take part in it.
Yeah, yeah. But a lot of a lot of these people, the big celebrities, when you're working with them, they're just there and they're about working together, right? Doing what we do, getting down to the nitty gritty, hitting your mark, saying your lines in a way that you know how to say them and promote the story, dealing with this problem and that problem. There's all of that image stuff falls away because that's all kind of created to it's a business thing, this whole thing to lift someone up into the celebrity status. But when you're actually working and shooting a scene, it's about getting the shots and telling the story, and everybody's just working at that task, and all of that other stuff just goes away.
Mhm.
Usually there've been a few stars I've worked with where it was not like that, but for the most part, that's what it is, right?
Mhm.
With everybody. And that's the way it was with him.
Mhm. Before I get into the Lost Souls, actually, I have another question because you also worked at a movie theater in New York and the American Museum of National History. How was that experience?
No, 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 I didn't, not there. I worked at the Metropolitan Museum
Oh,
of Art.
Metropolitan. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but my first job in New York was at a movie theater taking tickets. It's a movie theater that doesn't exist anymore. It
Okay.
was on
Was
58th
this
Street.
before Pet Cemetery or
Yeah,
was?
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
When
okay,
I
yeah.
when
Because I
I
heard an
first
interview. It must have been out of order, and I interpreting.
No, it was my first job in New York. You know, I had just come up from Virginia and I was unemployed and et cetera, et cetera. And I got this job taking tickets at a movie theater. And in those days, the tickets had two little holes in them, and you had to rip them in half and give the customer their half and put the other one on a spindle, right? And the manager made me stand there at the door the whole day. So I was on my feet. I couldn't sit down. On my feet for like 12 hours a day, right? And then I found out that, I started working on a Monday, and on Thursday I found out, Saturday night there on television is airing Laurence Olivier's production of King Lear, right? And I told my, I wanted to see it, because in those days there weren't any VCRs or anything like that. There's no way to record it, right? So back then you either saw it when it aired or you didn't see it. And so I told my manager, I can't work on Saturday. She said, you have to work on Saturday. I said, I can't. She said, well, if you can't work on Saturday, I'm going to have to let you go. And I said, okay. Because I was not going to miss Olivier doing King Lear, right? I just wasn't going to. So, and then after that, a little while later, you know, I was unemployed again, of course. And then I got a job at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which was a great job. You know, I worked there for a year. And I was going to acting classes in the evenings, but it was a great job because you got to see all this amazing art when nobody was there. And, you know, looking at paintings, you develop a sense of movement in a two-dimensional work of art that is directly transferable to film and television. You know, you see a painting that moves you. Why? Where are the lines? Where are the trajectories? Where are the eyes looking? What is it about these eyes? What is it about the form of the body, or the posture, or the colors, the light that is painted onto this canvas that just hits you? What is it, right? And I absorbed an awful lot from that is absolutely usable every time, especially with a film, not so much with television, but with films where it's all visual, creating that visual image. That was a great job for that. You know what I mean? Because it kind of seeps in without you getting intellectual about it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lost Souls, Winona Ryder. What was it like working with her?
Oh, again, she was very sweet, very kind. Yeah, and Ben Chaplin, same thing, very, very nice. And Janusz Kaminski, he directed, and I've since worked with him on two more times. He was like, you know, he's nuts. He's just this crazy, you know, cinematographer. But he was directing that, and you know, the film is gorgeous. It's gorgeous, but maybe it's a little too gorgeous because there were no scenes where it was not gorgeous, which was it kind of puts you on overload. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, on that one, I had my whole body was covered with tattoos that they had to paint on every day. So that was, yeah, another big makeup job that took, you know, not as long as Pet Sematary, but it was like 2 hours of painting tattoos on me.
See, these younger actors will never know the experience that the older actors went through because it's all CGI now, and the makeup is very minimal.
I guess so. Yeah. But you know, also on my first movie, The Bedroom Window, there was no video playback there. There was no, the Curtis Hanson, who was directing, sat right next to the camera watching, you know. Pet Sematary was the first movie I did where they actually had a playback, and it would take a little while to get it back, but then I could go and look at it, you know. Yeah, so the technology has come, you know, quite a long way since I started. Oh, I feel so old now.
You were part of the great era. That's what counts. The great era.
Yeah, I guess so.
But something that you're very proud of is taking part in Star Trek Voyager. You were able to take part in being the aliens that were appearing on the new episodes.
Yeah. Those were those were also big makeup jobs. Holy cow. On one of them, the Deep Space Nine, I was playing like this lizard gangster from outer space. And that makeup, it was like everything. And the problem with those, where all of your skin is covered, is that your skin can't breathe. And it starts to affect you after a while, like after 2 or 3 days in that, and the days are long, they're 15, 16-hour days, you start to go a little crazy. And on that one, I couldn't even hear much. I would have to like pay attention to whoever I was working with. I would have to watch their lips. And when their lips stopped moving, that's when I had to speak, because I couldn't hear because my ears were covered. Those were hard makeups. That one and one on an episode of Enterprise. Boy, those were tough because I was completely covered. They took a long time, and then, you know, it's television, so you shoot much faster than in films. You know, you just get up there and get through long scenes in one take. Those were hard work. Very, you know, very rewarding ultimately, you know, but on the day, just tough because you're just completely covered, you know.
Is there any upcoming work that you would love to promote that you have coming up? Any upcoming horror movies at all, and any work in general?
Well, I just shot, well, during the, you know, everything shut down during the pandemic. I mean, I had all these projects when we shut down. I had a lead role in a low budget movie, a small role in a larger movie, a play, and then there was some other movie as well. All of that was all set to go, and then the shutdown happened, and most of them just shut down. And for a while I didn't want to work at all. I was too scared about things. But I did do this little thing in a movie called King Richard with Will Smith. That was my second movie with Will Smith. I was also in Ali. He's the sweetest guy in the world, sweetest guy ever, I gotta say. So I did that, and then I did that's going to open this November, I think, next month.
Congratulations on that.
Thanks, but it was a pretty small role because I was dipping my toe into, you know, doing work during a pandemic. You know, I wasn't sure, and that was before we had the vaccines, so yeah, I was kind of nervous about it. But I quickly realized, oh, this is one of the safest places to be in Los Angeles. I was on a film set, quite frankly. And then I did a couple of episodes on a show called Why Women Kill in the spring, and that's aired. You can see that on Paramount Plus. Then I shot a kind of a sci-fi thing called Resurrected, which was a very strange experience. The director was directing over Zoom. He was in Russia. He was directing over Zoom, and the shooting was a low budget thing. Shooting was very quick, very nice crew. But I really don't know how that will turn out. I have no idea. That was an odd one. And what else? I think that's it. So just looking forward to the next one.
We can't forget one of your most important achievements in life is actually going on to teach acting to students.
Yes, yeah, I teach. That's a nice thing to do between projects. I've got this little studio in Santa Monica, and I teach film acting, and I seem to teach things that nobody else teaches. You know, like how do you perform in a wide shot or a medium shot, close up? You know, how do you move in a wide shot? How do you move in a close up? How do you get your personality to pop on screen? And, you know, various things. And it's not really about hitting marks and things like that. It's more about, you know, how do you project your personality in a way that the camera can read it? You know what I mean? So yeah, that's great fun. I've got a bunch of really good students. like they pay every week when they're supposed to. And they're very responsible and very good, very quick to take these things that I give them. They're sometimes kind of wacky, but they grow very quickly, and they work. You know, many students that have been with me for a while, they start working and have gone on to have good, solid careers. So that's very gratifying.
And just think that you're the leader pretty much for their careers by helping them out with these acting classes. That's what sends them on their way and prepare them.
Yeah. I'm kind of giving them a step up. Yeah. One class, like 2 years ago, maybe I brought in a bunch of scenes from Pet Sematary and had them do. I had somebody
did your students realize that you played Victor Pascal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they thought it was hilarious. So I had somebody playing Victor Pascal. I had people playing all these other little scenes from the movie, you know. Timmy Baterman, you know, who's like all back from the dead. Those things. That was great fun. But you know, because in the class we shoot things, we shoot a lot of stuff. I've got all these cameras and mics and lights and things like that, and so that was a fun class, that one.
That's great. Oh, Brad, I want to thank you for coming on the show here today. Is there anything else you would love to let the audience know, where they can follow you on Instagram and Twitter and on social media, anywhere else, any upcoming conventions you may be doing?
I don't know what conventions are next. I don't know. Just keep your eyes and ears open. And yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm easy to find on Instagram. That's the only social media I really do. And that's about it. Oh, I would say this. Soon as you feel comfortable with it, get back in a movie theater, go see movies, because movies have been dying. They're dying. Television has won the battle, but movies, there's nothing like seeing a movie in a theater with a lot of other people, whether it's a horror movie or a comedy or a drama. It's a shared experience with a large group of people, and the movies are slowly dying away. So please, when you feel safe, go to a movie theater, see a movie. All right.
We could start next week by going to see Halloween Kills. I don't know if you've heard the news, but they put that on Peacock. They're going to have that released on Peacock. So that's going to mess with the numbers of people who go see it in theaters, perhaps.
Yeah. That's the way the industry is going.
Yeah, unfortunately.
The pandemic gave it a big boost, you know, with at-home viewing. But again, seeing a movie on a big screen is magic. There's nothing like it. It's I think for me, it's more magical than seeing it on a small screen alone.
I agree. You get the whole surround sound, everything, the big experience.
Yeah, like it just takes you into another place for 2 hours, and seeing those faces so big on a screen is just, and with other people, it's a magic thing, and it's slowly dying. So please visit your local theaters, support them, go see lots of movies. That's what I would like to ask.
Get off social media and the phones and get out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's to the youth, that is, pretty much. And the adults are starting to get into it, but more of the youth. Get out. And
Yeah, exactly.
Greenquist, I appreciate it for you coming on my show. And you're always welcome. Anytime you need any promotions for any of your upcoming work, classes, whatever it is, you always have a spot on the show.
Oh, thanks, Max. That's really sweet of you. That's really generous of you. Thank you. I'll keep that in mind.
Of course.
Thanks for having me. I mean, I'm quite honored to be on your show, and you did such great research.
Thank you.
On me. I'm like really flabbergasted. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty great.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, we'll stay in touch, okay?
Yes, we'll stay in touch. I'll be sending you an email, and I want you to enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe during this time, and I want you to enjoy your October and as well as your Halloween.
Halloween, yes. I'm going to a concert on Halloween. I'm going to see the Who band. Have you ever heard of the Who band?
Yeah, I've heard of the Who. Now, is this the same Who that performed at the Super Bowl years ago?
No.
Okay,
no, this is called the Who band. They're
the
a bunch of Mongolian throat singers, and they play this. Look them up. HU, the Who band. it's pretty great music. So they're coming to LA, and so my whole family is
Oh, that's good.
taking me to see this show. It's at some small venue here in Los Angeles. So that's what I'm doing this Halloween.
That's great. At least you're doing something
Yeah,
with
yeah,
this
yeah.
pandemic going on. So you got to get out and do something.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
know you're
But we got
feeling,
through
but
it, didn't we? We all got through it, right?
yes, we did.
We got through it healthy and a bit rattled, but we got through it. Holy cow.
Yeah.
That could have destroyed humanity, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could have, and things have turned for the better here. Thank God.
Yes. All right, Max.
Yes, Brad.
Yes,
Yes.
we'll be in touch. We'll talk again soon. Okay.
Yes, for sure, Brad. I want to thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your day, man.
Okay. You too.
Yes. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.